Thanks to those joining me live and to those that'll be joining me and G Funk on Archive. Look at this. G Funk coming back, bro, with a vengeance, mic and everything. You know what I mean? And, in an office, he's look at this, right? That tells you Hispanics causing panics is growing, bro. It's just proof. Look.
That's it, man. We moving on up,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, today we're not going to keep it boxing as it says in the shirt up here, okay? But we are going to be talking some wrestling here. Make sure you guys subscribe if you like the content and press that like button. If you're listening to Archive right now, make sure the like button does turn blue before you continue listening. Make sure you do us that favor. Throw a jab at the like button, as we like to say. Also, support the channel and join D-Style membership today as low as just less than $1 a month. Just 99 cents a month can help support this channel, G-Funk. What do you think?
Hey, that's nothing, man. That's a hell of a deal there. You're going to get some good content here, man. So make sure you do that.
I got it right here. Look, 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4. Look at that. Pocket change. You know what I mean? But we got 3 tiers for the Silver Dragon, Red Dragon, Golden Dragon. Perks will start amplifying them as the weeks progress. I do want to thank everyone that has joined. I'll go over the list tonight in another video. But for now, let's go ahead and get this wrestling talk going, man. We're going to start off with ECW, G-Funk. All right? First of all, tell us what you remember about ECW. Like, what do you like? How did you first get exposed to it, and what do you remember about it when you first? Just to be specific, when you first ran into it.
Man, that's a tough one. I think that originally, when I was in high school, probably I know I'm going to date myself now. I want to say around 98, something like that. A friend of mine who was also a big pro wrestling fan like myself turned me on to ECW. He ordered a pay-per-view of theirs. I think it was I can't remember the name of it. They had those crazy names for their pay-per-views, but he had it on tape, showed it to me, and I was like, man, I had never seen no wrestling like that before, where there was literally no rules. Like, these guys are just throwing chairs in the ring, using tables. I mean, fighting all through the crowd and barbed wire. I was just like, man, this is some crazy stuff. Like, I think before I seen that, the only thing I seen closest to something like that was the Boiler Room Brawl with Mankind and the Undertaker, which was pretty out there too. But yeah, he turned me on to that, and then somehow, some way, man, you know how it was back in the day when you had antennas, the rabbit ear antennas on the TVs, for the old school viewers, that's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, at my grandparents' house, I was able to get the antennas to go a certain way to where I could get this Bay Area channel. See, I live in Sacramento. This Bay Area is about maybe an hour and a half drive from here. So I was able to get one of the Bay Area channels through the antenna there, and it came in pretty clear. It wasn't the clearest, but it was good enough to where you could see it. And on Saturdays at, I think it was 9 o'clock, it started. They were showing the ECW weekly program. And from there, I just started watching, man. It was just, man, crazy to see. And the cool thing about it was you got to see some of the wrestlers grow from that organization to like a WCW or a WWF at the time it was, before it became WWE. So that was kind of my exposure to it, man. A friend of mine put me onto it. He had a pay-per-view on tape, and then from there it was just more wrestling is good for me, man.
All right. Shout out to Seen and Unseen Boxing. This is salute. Bay Homie D-Style Boxing and panel. I'm being joined by Chief Funk here. Salute to the chat. Smash the like button. Absolutely. Stay tuned, guys. We've got a lot of great talk here. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, some of these stories are very fascinating, in my opinion. Okay, BFTV, what's going on to you? Okay, official member of the D-Style Boxing. He was the first one, Chief Funk. He was number uno, right? Salute to my brother Gravedigger. Says Seen and Unseen. Check it out. I was first exposed to ECW when Al Heyman popped up on Raw, bro. Remember that?
You know what? I do remember that, but it just kind of slipped my mind, man, when my friend kind of re-exposed me to it. But like, it's funny because see, I didn't have during the mid-90s, like my parents split, so income was kind of low. So like, I didn't have cable anymore, so I didn't get to watch Raw every week. And the only time I did was when I got to go to like a relative's house on like a Monday night,
Yeah.
and I was just there was watching TV, so I would just grab a remote and put it on, But I
Yeah.
do remember seeing that, but it was something that just kind of never stuck in my head.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I remember there was these chants, and I don't know what they were, but there was I don't remember what the wrestling match was, but I didn't understand why the people were going crazy for these two particular wrestlers, right? And then all of a sudden, some ECW guys come in and they beat up those two jobbers pretty much, and Al Heyman comes out, and then before you know it, he's kind of like guest announcing next to JR and King. And I gotta be honest, I was like, who are these guys? Like, what's like who's Sabu and this dude that looks like Van Dam? You know what I mean? Rob RVD. Like who are these? I don't know who these guys are. I don't care about these guys. Because I was used to wrestlers being larger than life, bro. You know what I mean? Like a Bret Hart, a Hulk Hogan, a freaking, even the ECW guys, like, I mean, not Sting. You know what I mean? I expect, and they just didn't seem larger than life to me, man. They just looked like a bunch of regular dudes. Am I wrong? That was my perception.
No, that's something that could easily be seen by someone who's never seen these guys before, and especially someone like the Sandman. That dude, he just looked like an ordinary dude drinking beer. Like or even Tommy Dreamer, who's he's kind of got that physique as a wrestler, but he just to me, I don't know. I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like if you didn't know them, you would think
I don't
they
know
were
if he had the physique, bro. Look, anytime you have to wear a T-shirt to wrestle, I don't know if you have the physique to be a professional wrestler. You know what I mean? But that's not here nor there. But I expected these guys to be larger than life, bro. I was like, where the hell is Bret? Bret Hart comes out, he beat all these dudes' asses. This is how I felt as a kid. You know what I mean? Like who are these guys? And then like it's funny because they would still have the main event on Raw, and it was Bret Hart versus the 1-2-3 Kid or something, which is a hell of a match, by the way. But and I just didn't care about the ECW guys. There was only an hour of Raw, and it would give these guys a whole segment, like a good 15-minute slot. And I like it. You know what I mean? I understood why Vince was doing it. I get it. But I just, he was competing in the ratings against Nitro. So I get it, right? He wanted to kind of give people something. But, man, outside of Philadelphia, New York, like the Northeast, ain't nobody give a shit about ECW, bro. Okay? For those that don't know, by the way, ECW, I believe, stood for Eastern Wrestling Championship.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to Extreme later on. What do you know about what Douglas did when he won the NWA title, and then he threw that belt away in front of the NWA officials, which is unheard of at the time. There's people that broke from them, and I'll explain what the NWA is in a little bit to people, or let me just explain it really quick. The NWA used to be an organization that used to vote on who the world champion should be. You know what I mean? They would all get together, and a committee would vote, and they would pick a champion to wrestle across all the territories in the United States. All right? Kind of like the franchise belt. You know how they went over there to Hawaii to vote? Something like that. You know what I mean? It's funny how boxing started to vote on champions now, like NWA did back in the day, but that's what they did. And so obviously with the growth of and then they were on WCW for a while, and then WCW was like, why are we paying these people a sanctioning fee pretty much? Like we could just have our own champion. So they had the WCW champion. However, they had a good like relationship with them, and it was still kind of bad blood there, but they didn't like disrespect them on the way out. You know what I mean? Like they still held the title to Prestige. They just created their own title. Kind of this sounded a lot like boxing story, right? I don't know.
It does.
Yeah. And then WWE, Vince McMahon created his own championship. Okay. WWE was like the IBF belt at one point, bro. They was like, we're just going to make our own, right? You guys do your thing. We're going to do our thing over here. You know what I mean? And WWE started to grow. And then, but NWA was still held at high prestige. Now, what Douglas did when he won a tournament, that they organized a tournament for these guys to wrestle or whatever. Okay. And Douglas was chosen as the guy that was going to win, you know. And in the end, he throws the title away and he says, I'm the ECW champion. This belt is trash. Okay. He no-sold it. He basically said it's not the same title, and it wasn't, right? That it was in the past. Okay. Kind of like the WBA title. You know what I mean? Like it lost a lot of prestige.
Yeah.
WCW created their own. WWE created their own. Before you knew it, all the organizations just had their own championship. No need to have a committee. As a promoter, like I'd rather just pick my own champion. That's how Vince ran shit. His dad did anyway than him. And anyway, what were your thoughts on Shane Douglas spitting on the championship pretty much and all that? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's something that I didn't get to watch when it happened because, like you said, ECW originally was just Eastern Championship Wrestling, which basically means it was based out there in the East Coast. I believe Philadelphia is where their home arena was, the ECW arena, and we weren't really exposed to that here on the West Coast. But now that I've am able to go back and watch that stuff now, like I don't know, because NWA, at the time, like you said, it was just like that thing. They just voted, and all that type of stuff. But like, they were already kind of gone. Like Jim Crockett, who owned that company before, like he had already sold to Ted Turner. All those dudes
Right.
who were there went to it turned out to be World Championship Wrestling, WCW.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they kind of took it as an opportunity to put their name out there. ECW, that is. So once somebody from ECW won the belt, they just said, "Hey, I'm throwing this away." Do a little Kobe, throw the fade away,
Kobe.
And then
Kobe.
and then put ECW on the map, and it did work, man, because from there on they became the Extreme, and then they did have a little bit of success there for a little bit, man.
Yeah. They had some success. There is, look, because I'm gonna shit, and I'm sorry, boxing historian. I don't know you're doing an ECW chant. I'm gonna shit on ECW, but before I shit on them, right? Early on, man, they were a very good gateway for guys like Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero,
Dean
Malenko, Chris Jericho, all the Radicals, pretty much, right? And other guys, you know what I mean? They were a good gateway for. They were a gateway for Steve Austin,
Yep.
And
even Cactus Jack kind of came out of his shell there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For Stone Cold Steve Austin, the guy gets fired from the ECW. I'm sorry, not WCW. Right? And there's a lot of politics going on over there. So they let go. They didn't see guys. They let go of Stone Cold because they didn't think he was a draw. Okay, I just want people to understand this. But hey, you know what I mean? ECW picks him up, and look, he had a lot of venting to do. So all Heyman, he just gave him a mic to talk shit about WCW.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back at that, bro, that is Stone Cold. Yeah. You won't recognize it because he has the hair and shit and all that. You know what I mean? But he's talking shit, and that was the birth of Stone Cold. He goes to WWE, bro, WWF at the time, and Vince turns him into the ringmaster, and he tells him, "You're not going to talk." He didn't want him to talk, bro. He wanted to shut the fuck up, and he got him the $1 Million Man as the dude to talk for him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Shit was retarded, bro. And he was like, "You're the ringmaster." And Steve Austin was like, "Bro, I had 2 bad knees. I couldn't do grappling like that. I had to be a brawler and shit. Like I didn't have it like that anymore." You know what I mean? And they took away the stunner, bro. They were going to give him the $1 Million Dream as a finisher. So ECW got some things right. You know what I mean? They got some things right. But here's my problem with ECW, bro. several of them, right? Number one, they didn't take care of their wrestlers, bro.
No.
They did, like, dude, so many dudes gave their body to that organization. I don't see all those fans that were chanting ECW paying their bills. All those dudes that were asked to go through flaming tables and 5 tables and get hit in the head over and over again with share shots and fall on thumbtacks and a lot of the stuff, I got to be honest, bro, I'm not a fan of. You know what I mean? When it comes to pro wrestling, I think a lot of that stuff hurt the business. But a lot of people loved it. It's like watching a fucking car crash. You know what I mean? But in my opinion, it's cheap entertainment. You know what I mean? You like, okay, a guy fell through 10 tables and he got a concussion. And you know what I mean? Oh, but man, he loved the business. Yeah, you didn't love it enough to help pay those dudes. Taz, this dude went to the ER, bro, with a fucked up neck. Al Heyman didn't pay his bills, bro. Well, when he was at home and he couldn't work for months, dude.
Yeah.
This dude couldn't work for months, and Al Heyman didn't pay his bills. All these
it was.
He would tell them. He would tell. I mean, he would give them credit, like verbally, like, "Oh man, that was amazing. That match was legendary." Really, it was watched by like 20 people in the crowd. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was watched by like 200 people in the ballroom and a couple thousand people on VHS tape. Very legendary. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not
they
like
could.
WrestleMania, bro. But what are your thoughts on some of those? As far as some of the way they treated the wrestlers.
No, I agree. Because of, again, if you're going to live up to the extreme name, you're going to have to do some extreme things in there. And for me, I mean, I actually enjoyed those hardcore matches like that. It was just kind of a breath of fresh air in a way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved wrestling, and for me, it was just like, man, it was just something different, but to jump on the point you were making about them, taking care of the wrestlers, that's very true, because even the guy who towards the end of ECW, who was the champion, was Mike Awesome. He says that there was several times he didn't even get paid for wrestling. Like Heyman just couldn't afford it,
I don't get what Mike Awesome. Of course, you should get paid, but that dude, did you notice Mike Awesome got to powerbomb everybody through 10, 20 tables all day, right? He got to pick up dudes and powerbomb them outside the ring and through tables and flaming tables. And, Mike Awesome, he's powerbombing people. Mike Awesome, right? Like, that was all cool. I never saw his ass get fucking powerbombed through tables. I never saw him put his body in the line. Maybe I'm wrong. Not like that. He put his body in the line like a regular wrestler would, but I don't know if that was on his contract or something. But of course he should get paid, though. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like, of course you should get paid. But I mean, the dude was out of hand. I don't. But you're right. A lot of guys didn't even get paid. A lot of dudes didn't get paid, bro.
Yeah, that's tough, man. And I mean, those dudes, they really love the business, like to go through that type of stuff, and to, eventually a lot of those dudes, went on to like, I said, Mike Awesome, he went on. That's the reason why he went to WCW. A lot of guys like Taz went into WWF, which I think his debut, the way that they got him in there was pretty cool, But eventually some of those dudes end up getting some good paydays, man, which is pretty cool. But man, a lot of them, man, like you said, they go through so much, man, in those little promotions, man, and to not get paid, man, that's tough, man. I don't know if I could do that. I don't care how much I love the sport,
Yeah, and like, here's the problem, bro. The whole point of it is to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like say what you want about Vince, dudes get paid. Like, say whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, dudes get paid, bro. Now I have some more stories about Vince, and Vince is no angel. Don't get me wrong. He's not above getting criticized at all. I have a lot of gripes with Vince, but dudes get paid, though. You know what I mean? Would you agree to with him? Whatever contract, he always pays up. Always.
Yeah. But if he didn't, there's reports I've heard, and we'll talk about this a little later, but he'll say, hey, you know what? Hey, I can't fulfill the contract, man. Feel free to find some other place, like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Check it out. here's my second problem with ECW. Okay, they went too far, too often, too soon. Okay, it's hard to sell a body slam to people. Okay, when these guys are going through flaming tables. Okay, it's hard to sell a story of a wrestling match. You know what I mean? In the ring, when you have these other motherfuckers, even though they're putting their bodies on the line and destroying their bodies, okay, but fighting with Kindle sticks and barbed wire and all this other nonsense, all right, it oversaturates the market, bro. Like and there's a lot of problems I have with a lot of the things they would do. Like the way wrestling should be is this is how I see it. Okay. If it was real, how would it go? All right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If it was real, how would what this situation makes sense if it was real. And ECW never made fucking sense. All logic went out the window because people wanted to see dudes go through tables. Okay? Like, why would he put somebody through a table? He could just body slam them right on the fucking concrete. Why would he give something to break their fall exactly? Why would he do that? Why would you climb with somebody while you're fighting? Why would you climb a ladder for? Why would you climb the ladder, fighting, punching somebody, climbing the ladder to the top, so you both could throw yourselves, or one of you could throw the other on a set of tables you both set up while you were climbing before you climbed the ladder? I mean, it's ridiculous, bro. Right? And like that wouldn't happen. Like if I get in a fight with Chief Funk, right? I'm not gonna like fight with them and then knock him down and then get a table and set it up and then kick him in the head and then get another table and set that one up and then he's gonna hit me. I'm gonna fall down. Then Chief Funk's gonna get the third table and put it up top. And then he's gonna pull out the ladder and then we're gonna start fighting and we're both gonna climb the ladder to the top while we're punching each other. And then I'm gonna shove G-Funk. That's right, I put myself over. I'm gonna shove G-Funk onto the three tables. You know how ridiculous that whole setup is? Like
Yeah.
people not understand how moronic that is. Because even like I understand it's not real, I understand it's scripted, but there has to be some logic. Like there has to be at least a resemblance of logic. When you're watching a movie, even if it's superheroes like Thanos, it has to make some logical sense as to why somebody would do something. You know what I mean? But what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel that hurt the business, bro. When I see Jim Cornette talks about this all the time. When two dudes are on top of the ladder, they look at each other. They literally look at each other. They go like this. And they nod their heads at each other. And then they throw themselves onto the table. Like, oh, and people go crazy. Like, oh my God, they went through 4 tables. Like, that's trash to me. I'm sorry. All right? That's what it is. It's trash to me. It's like watching Jackass. You might as well just watch Jackass. Remember Jackass, the show?
Yeah, I do.
just watch that. If you want to watch dudes just work with each other, put themselves through tables, then do that. But that's not pro wrestling, bro. But I'll give Chief Funk a chance to give his thoughts on that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I noticed that right away when I started watching ECW about how it would take them so long to set up the props to do these extreme maneuvers. Did it bother me at the time? No. I was just excited to watch a new brand of wrestling.
Right.
I was just like those crazy ECW fans. I would be ECW. But that is something I did notice. But I just, it didn't bother me. At the time. Now that I'm a little bit older and I understand how the business works now, because see, at the time, kayfabe was still kind of alive at that time. So, you could still argue with somebody who doesn't watch wrestling, doesn't like wrestling, who's, man, this shit is just fake, like, you could be like, hey, look, check this out. Like that. That's what I would do. I'd be like, was this fake? This dude went through like 3 tables, or something like that.
So let me be honest with you, bro. I was never one of those dudes that got mad when somebody called it fake, because it is fake, right? Like, it's not like watching a boxing match. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different form of entertainment. It's it's not, the competition isn't real, guys. You know what I mean? That's not. It's about the the story and all that. But I had a problem with that. And Sabu would do these crazy stunts, but the setup was like ridiculous, bro. It was just dumb. Like, I'll give you an example, G Funk. Do you remember the spot where this guy, Bret Hart, when he was wrestling a Diesel, Kevin Nash, and Diesel bumped the ropes, and Bret Hart fell onto the table with the monitors and everything?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Now that was a bump, and that was like a believable scenario. Okay, it made logical sense. That's how this motherfucker was good at what he did. Okay. Right. By the way, that was one of the, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time anybody went through a table on television. Right. But what Bret Hart was against the apron. Okay. Diesel bumped the ropes on him, and it swung him. And you can still say that's kind of unbelievable, but at least it makes some logical sense. And he went through the table with the monitors and all, and that's kind of unsafe, but he had to do that to make it believable. Nowadays, dudes like they tick off the monitors.
Yeah.
Before they slam someone to the table. Like, why would you do that?
I think Mankind went through one also kind of strange. This is before that infamous Hell in a Cell bump that he took from The Undertaker.
Yeah.
But I do remember him going through a table maybe around the same time that Bret Hart bump happened, and I think he might have went like head first or something like that. It was crazy to see that. But no, you're right. When you see, obviously you'll see a huge world of difference between some of these guys that wrestled in ECW compared to someone like a Bret Hart. I mean, Bret Hart is just, we'll get to him later, but in my opinion, he's the best to ever do it. But yeah, when he went through that table, it was everything everything he did in the ring just about was believable. Like you could pass it off as almost real. But the ECW setups and things like that, especially with someone like New Jack, I was never really a big fan of New Jack, even though I was a fan of ECW. But I just think that, again, like you said, how long it takes him to set up 3-4 tables and then walk through the crowd and go all the way up there while the guy's waiting on the table for him to jump off the balcony and splash him. Like, I was never a big fan of that type of stuff. But I did like the matches like Van Dam and Sabu, and like those ones are pretty cool.
Back to my example of Bret Hart going through that table. Okay, it was unexpected and it came out of nowhere. If you're watching, even though it's all predetermined and all that, right? But when I was watching that match as a kid and that happened, it caught me by surprise. I didn't see it coming. Okay. A good wrestling match should be able to do that. Like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
ECW was predictable. You already knew what they were going to do. Maybe you didn't know the finish, but you knew everything they were going to do up until the very end. Now, granted, WWE is the same fucking way today. Okay. But that's another story. All right. But I will say, Eddie Allen brought a good point. They did have some good, just technical wrestling matches, and they were overshadowed by the hardcore shit. But let's be honest, the reason people watched it and chanted ECW was because of the hardcore shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just got to be honest with you.
I want to get you real quick before I move on. Yeah. I want to know your opinion on that incident that happened at the ECW arena where the fans literally showered one of the wrestlers with chairs. Like, they were everybody was just throwing chairs in the ring. Have you ever seen that?
I'm familiar with the situation, but I'm not that. I don't remember that much.
Yeah, that was crazy. They had to I think it might have been Paul Heyman had to get on the PA system and just say, "Stop throwing chairs," because it started out as one guy from the crowd throwing a chair, then another guy, and then everybody else thinks that they're free to do it. There was I'm not even kidding, maybe close to 100 chairs thrown in the ring. It was just it was one of the most bizarre things.
Why were they throwing tables like at a dude for? I mean, not tables, chairs. Like, what was that all about? Like,
I can't remember what it was. It was always on one of the highlights of their weekly show. They would show just chairs just flying into the ring, you know.
Well, man, I just think it hurt the business, and there was some wrestlers I thought were good. I thought Rob Van Dam was good. I think WC he kind of fucked himself over in WWE, you know, not passing the wellness stuff and stuff like that. Triple H did bury him though. I forget a Survivor Series, something like that. But overall, I think wrestling would be better off today if ECW never existed. But that's my opinion. How do you feel about it, G-Funk?
I disagree a little bit. I mean, because you know they did utilize a lot of that talent there, and to go back to that Mankind bump with the Undertaker, you know that was. I mean, they admitted themselves that's something that they took because ECW was doing things like that, you know. And I mean, I think for a lot of the things that you said, yeah, that did kind of hurt the business, but it was also, you know, also brought a little light to WCW and WWF at the time that weren't really doing a lot of matches like that, you know?
Right.
Like they even had a hardcore division, remember? the old busted belt, you know?
I mean, there's some good, but overall, I just think pro wrestling was hurt by it. Maybe WWE got a little bit of a bump with the Attitude Era based off of that. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, I don't know if I would give ECW that much credit. I think the credit is overstated. And I also can't, a lot of the fans are just too nostalgic, bro. Like, they swear like the ECW guys were the shit. Aside from a couple of them, bro, I wasn't impressed with Sandman. What type of talent did Sandman have, bro? All bullshit aside. He came out to a song that's okay, to Metallica's Enter Sandman. Why, it's not his fucking song. It's not him singing. So everybody's singing to the song, okay. So what did he do? He just hit people with a fucking candlestick. That's all he did. I could do that.
Yeah. Smash the beer can on his forehead, you know.
Yeah, well, what did that do for him? What all those scars on the fucking forehead and New Jack do for him?
Not much.
All these dudes that left Paul Heyman, they make their money when they went to WCW or WWE. Every single last one of them. All right? Every single one of them. I think ECW was trash. Somebody mentioned, what's up to Teresa D? Member on here, what's going on? CZW, Eddie Allen, I have heard of it, and yes, I do agree that's trash. All right? That's crazy. I don't know what the King dude's talking about. Mankind, Undertaker did not plan to bump inside. Yeah, they didn't plan that bump. That was an accident. When Undertaker choke slammed him on the top, that was an accident.
Oh, from the top, yeah. He wasn't supposed to go through, right? He was just supposed to land on the top of the cage, yeah.
Right, yeah.
But I think the initial throw off that they did, because they both went up on top, and when he first threw him off onto the Spanish announce table, I think that one was planned, but it wasn't planned for him to go through the cage and then lose a tooth.
Right. Yeah, that was not planned at all. Okay. So that is correct. But hey, I'll be honest with you guys. I think the Undertaker Shawn Michaels Hell in a Cell is way better than the Undertaker Mankind one.
That was a good match, yeah.
It's a way better match. They told a way better story. It's people just remember this motherfucker going through a fucking cage.
Plus, plus that Shawn Michaels Undertaker was the debut of Kane too.
Right, it was. You're right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they made that dude look unstoppable. You know what I mean? They were jobbing him a couple years later.
Ripped the door off the cage, and that was pretty cool, man.
Yeah. But check it out, man. We're gonna move topics here, guys. Speaking of somebody that was in ECW for some time, before we get to the actual the Benoit, dark side and what he ended up doing, those that haven't checked out the Vice story, make sure you do so. Talk to us about when you first saw Chris Benoit and what he thought about him and his in-ring work.
Man, I first saw Chris Benoit when he was in the Four Horsemen in WCW. Um, this was probably around like '96. I want to say something like that, early '96. I thought he was a good wrestler, man. And for anybody, to be in the Four Horsemen, man, you got to be a good wrestler. Like they don't allow just anybody in there. You either got to be really, really good, or you just got to be like really over with the fans.
Right, exactly. Unless you're Michael McMichael.
Yeah, Mongo McMichael.
Yeah, Mongo, that's right.
Yeah.
Why was he the Fourth Horseman? I have no idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a little strange because he was not a good wrestler at all. Maybe just because he was an ex-football player or something, But yeah, Benoit. Right away, you could tell. And I'm an old school wrestling fan, man. I grew up watching wrestling in the '80s. You could just see right away that the influence that the Dynamite Kid had on Chris Benoit. I mean, a lot of the things that he did were similar to Dynamite Kid. Not only his finisher where he would dive off with the flying headbutt, but also doing those snap suplexes and things like that. Like those are things that the Dynamite Kid was really, really good at.
By the way, just side note, in my opinion, it's probably the best in-ring worker ever, Dynamite Kid, till this day. But go ahead.
Definitely one of them up there, man. And doesn't get a lot of credit too. That's the sad part. But we should do a video on him one day. But back on Benoit, I mean, yeah, he was just a really good worker in the ring, man. You could tell he was well polished, and I was a fan of his, man. All the way from there to when they came over with him and Malenko, Guerrero, and Perry Saturn, when they came over as the Radicals to the WWF. They were all good wrestlers, man, all of them. But Benoit was, he's one of those guys that stood out to me early, man. You could just see that Dynamite Kid influence on him.
Definitely. And look, obviously, I saw him in the Four Horsemen too. Didn't really do much with him. I mean, he almost always have the best technical matches in WCW, and like matches that no one like really cared about, I guess, on pay-per-views and stuff. It was one of those random WCW matches they would make. A lot of great work, bro. I enjoyed watching Chris Benoit in WCW. However, it was obviously overshadowed by the NWO and
who wasn't?
Yeah, it was overshadowed by just about everybody. You know what I mean? It's when I'll be honest, like even like the cruiserweights got more attention than him. You know what I mean? I think he had some. I think he wasn't he like in a cruiserweight or kind of sometimes. I don't know, but a lot of those guys got more attention sometimes. By the way, the WCW's cruiserweight division was fire. Okay.
Oh man,
the
best.
And they did it right until they didn't. But we could always talk about that another time. As far as Benoit, when he went to WWE, bro, I couldn't believe how WWE just put him over right away. Do you remember what they did first night?
Yeah, they attacked the New Age Outlaws, right? From the
they put him in the ring. Well, that might have been Raw, but I believe it was SmackDown. They put him in the ring with the WWE champion at the time, Triple H. All right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He put the Crippler Crossface on him, and Triple H. The ref wasn't looking, but Triple H tapped. Right. He put him over. He put his finisher over. Right. Like he put his finisher over. If Triple H would have put on the Crippler Crossface, and then he didn't sell it, didn't tap, and got out of it instead, and that would have buried. That would what you would call bury. He would have buried his fucking finisher, bro. He put it over. You got to give him credit for that. WWE didn't have to do this, but they did. All right, and they were winning the ratings at the time, right? But it was a good strategy. It put him over. Triple H won the match. He low blowed him from behind. Total heel move, right? And anyone that knows about wrestling, that's a good way to still keep the momentum. Like people could, what can you say as the viewer? He should have won, but the ref wasn't looking, and he screwed him, and you know what I mean. So that was big for the Radicals, you know,
Huge.
and it was huge. So I remember that. I remember his runs, his matches with Kurt Angle were some of the best matches I've ever seen.
Oh
Right,
yeah.
those matches were awesome, dude. Right, and in a weird, like he would almost always lose to Angle, right? But he would look good. Like I remember there was a match where he got a standing ovation from the crowd, where it actually worked out better for him that he lost because he got that sympathy from people. You know what I mean? And it all culminated. I remember. Do you remember when he won the championship at
At
the Garden?
WrestleMania 20, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and his friend Eddie Guerrero was there in the end. That was a big moment, bro. That
Yep.
was huge. All right.
Both those guys are, man, well deserved too, man. They put in a lot of work over the years. Wrestling, you know, not even mid card for so many, just opening up shows a lot, and then working their way all the way up, man, to the very top, man. That was a beautiful moment, man. Even
Yep.
though, again, we know the stuff's predetermined, but you got to feel for the journey that these guys took to get
Yep.
there.
And I gotta tell you, bro, even though Chris Benoit was what, like 5'9", 5'8",
Maybe, yeah.
I think it was 5'9", but he didn't seem like a little guy to me, bro. Right? Like he looked like he fit just fine against all the big dudes. He really did. You know what I mean? And the way he would kind of sell the technical wrestling moves and pick those guys apart reminded me a lot of like a Bret Hart. The way he would kind of sell that. So he looked like, and he would have wrestled the proper matchups against the bigger guys. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He wouldn't wrestle everybody the same because you can't tell the same story against everybody, right? But so he became champion, and he was a couple years went by, but then Chris Benoit, man, one day didn't show up. You caught the documentary, G-Funk, the Vice documentary?
Yeah, I did. I did, man. And I thought it was well done, man. I've been watching all of the Dark Side of the Ring episodes. This one was the first one that I had seen. Somebody had told me about it, a friend of mine. I didn't even know Vice was doing a series on it. I missed a whole a whole season of episodes, but I ended up going back and watching them on demand. But this was the first one that put me on to the actual series, and I got to say, man, I was real impressed with the work that they did. And I mean, obviously, what he did was just terrible. But I'm just talking about the production and the way that they told the story. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, the production, all that is good. I don't know if it's a good story, but
Yeah.
it's a must watch in a way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, we're not going to go through every intricate detail of what happened, but it was a double homicide suicide, and to put it bluntly, Chris Benoit murdered his son and his wife, and then I believe like 24 hours later hung himself after doing that. You know what I mean? I said I was going to go through details, but from what I understand, he suffocated his son, right? And he put a Bible or something next to him. I don't know what that was about. And then he broke his wife's back. And from the autopsy, the only way they could envision how he did that was by putting his knee on her back to do it. You know what I mean? Ended up killing her, and then he hung himself. He did it in his weight room. He used his weights to do it. Dude hung himself. What's going on, Big Dog Willie? Another member on here. Shout out to you, bro. How's it going? And that is crazy. And for those that don't know, he didn't show up to work, right? Before Raw went on the air, they got the news that the family was dead. This is all the cops told WWE. This is all they told them, right? This is all they told him. And they ended up, they were giving, some, all these wrestlers saying all these good things about Benoit, bro. Like for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And then they got news of what happened. All the, wrestlers giving speeches and all that suddenly stopped. They just showed the WrestleMania match and it just went off the air. I remember wondering why did they do that, and then I turn on to the news, CNN at the time, and it's all over, bro. Double homicide, suicide. Tony Boswell, what's going on to you, bro? Another member. Shout out to you. Thank you for the support. Smash the like button and show support. Absolutely. That's shilling, bro. Me just trying to say this shilling. You know what I mean? Because look, murdering any two people and then committing suicide is a horrible thing. All right. But to do it to your own family, your own son, your wife, and then to commit suicide is at a whole nother level. And then the way he did it's even worse. I don't go through every detail, but what were your thoughts, G-Funk, when you watched the documentary?
Well, other than, like I said, the production, the way that they put together and told the story, I thought was really, really good. But back when this stuff first happened with Benoit, I mean, obviously, like you said, nobody knew the full details. They just knew that they were all dead, all three of them. They go on, like you said, they have the tribute show on the Monday Night Raw, and then everybody's saying the good things about Benoit and how much of a good wrestler he was and stuff like that. And then, shortly after we find out what he had did and then did to himself, man, like I was like, at the time I was a lot younger than I am now. And, I wasn't married, didn't have children. So, I mean, I'm not to say that I was like, whatever. I mean, I was like, damn, that's terrible. That's fucked up, what he did. But as now I'm older, I'm 36 now, I'm married, I have a daughter, who is special needs. Like Chris Benoit's son was autistic. I gotta tell you, man, and everybody watching that, man, it hit me a different way, man. It hit me a different way now that I'm, like I said, I'm a father and I'm married. Like, it was just, wow. Like, even though I already knew the story, I already knew everything, just reliving it again, it just, man, it messed me up, man. Big time. And, and then to see his son, his older son, was a part of the documentary too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, man, it's hard to even put in words, man, to feel what he's feeling, that kid, he's a strong dude. They put him in there and they put, I believe her name was Nancy, which is Benoit's wife, her sister, put them together. And, man, that's tough, man. That's tough to see, but, man, I just, it's tough to put in words, man. Like I said, it was hard to see and hard to relive again all those little details about what he did, man. But, what can you do, man?
It is crazy, man. Shout out to Tony Boswell, member here. It says, one of my triplets had autism. It's not easy, but he is a blessing. Absolutely.
Yep.
I got you. Absolutely, man. And look, when it happened, do you remember like Fox News was talking about maybe Sullivan did it? You ever hear that theory?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like Fox News was like, I think Geraldo Rivera put it out there. And I remember they were like, yeah, he was actually the husband, and she divorced him to marry Benoit, and maybe we're looking at a triple homicide. Like a lot of people say that now. Sullivan didn't do that, okay? And I'm sorry, boxing historian, you might be in denial, but Benoit most definitely did it, right? Like he most definitely did that, right? Well, without a shadow of doubt. Let's talk about one of his moves was the flying headbutt. Right? He did it a lot. And speaking of people that have issues, the Dynamite Kid's kind of up there, bro.
Yeah.
Like that flying headbutt like if you keep doing it over and over again, it's a lot like the linemen in football, bro. Right now, dude was obviously jacked up on shit. Okay, without a shot, this dude he was roided. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, WWE has an amazing wellness program. This motherfucker was roided up. Okay, but can we blame this? Like, what do you think it was, Chief Funk? People have different, you know. Um. By the way, I don't know if it came from Fox News, but Geraldo Rivera brought it up to Bill O'Reilly. He brought that up. I don't know if he's the one that initiated it, but he's the one that brought it up. But no, Sullivan didn't do it. What do you think was Chief Funk? A mix of things. Like, what's your like? What do you think caused him to do this? Because everyone that knows him said they couldn't believe it. He was a gentle dude. Like he was just a cool dude, down to earth. Why would he do it?
Right. Man, I think it was a combination of things, man. Obviously the head trauma over the years, that flying headbutt, I mean, it's a spectacular finish, but at the same time, very damaging, not only to the person that's taking the bump, but yourself, because you're flying off and, I mean, fake or not, like, I mean, there's nothing fake about that move.
Like you're landing your forehead on bone, whether it's shoulder, the ribs, or something, like on bone, or on the fucking mat, bro.
Yeah. So I think it was a combination of that. Obviously, we know the damage that steroids can do to someone's body, but also the rage that comes with it, and I think a big part of it that I didn't even know about until I seen the documentary. I mean, obviously I seen like when Eddie Guerrero passed away. I think that was something that really messed him up. We obviously seen when Guerrero passed and they did the tribute to him. Benoit, he broke down, was crying and weeping during his little tribute to Eddie Guerrero, but I didn't know it went as far as it went. Like listening to what Eddie's wife was saying about how he was just always crying, and flying over there and sitting in Eddie's gym, just crying nonstop all the time, and just the letters that he was writing in his diaries to Eddie, saying things like, I'll see you soon, when this guy's already been dead a couple of years now, and that's something that can really, really mess people up, man. Not being able to get over that grief of somebody being gone, and we've all been there, me, you, everyone in the chat, we've all lost somebody in life that we care about deeply. But at some point, that serious grieving period, you got to move on, or things like this could happen. I'm not saying this could happen every time, but these sort of things can happen where people can just go crazy, if they can't just get over it and seek professional help, man. I say to anybody out there that's dealing with something like that, man, you got to seek professional help, man. I know it's not an easy thing to do, man, but that's what I think it was, man. I think it was just a combination of those three things, man, that really did it to him.
I agree. I think it was a combination of things, but do you think, I want to ask you, G-Funk, you're a believer and all that, you know what I mean? Do you think there was something evil there? The evil one, like, do you think there's something? It was just an evil act. I mean, to be honest, that's actually what Vince said too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course, that's definitely evil to, take the life of your wife and your son. It's, man, like I said, man, it's really hard for me to even talk about because, now that I'm a father, like, it's like, man, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine, what would be going through somebody's head.
I'm gonna let you finish, that, but bro, bro, I don't know what it is with these dudes that just randomly coming on here talking about Benoit was gay with Eddie. Okay, we heard you guys first time. Not even a fucking topic, right?
Right.
the fuck are you guys doing? Take that gay shit somewhere else, right?
Please.
Hey, go make a video about how they were gay or something. See if somebody will watch it, right? But go ahead, G-Funk.
Um, yeah, man. Like I said, I can't even imagine what's going through somebody's head. You have to be seriously messed up. And if I'm not mistaken, from what the neurologist said about Benoit's brain, because I guess they studied his brain after his death. They talked about how his brain was like an 80-year-old man with dementia. He had some serious brain damage. And to me, that's the only logical thing that makes sense. Is someone is just not right up here to do something like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're things like this really do make people think like, man, how could someone possibly do that? I do believe there was brain damage. I do believe that, but he said he was hearing voices. Well, I don't care. I can't say that, but do you think he was hearing voices or something that perhaps he thought, because when you look at the letter or like the suicide letter he left, do you believe that in some weird, twisted, alternative reality, he thought he was doing the right thing, right? Like he thought, like, well, all three of us are going to heaven. We're going to leave this earth or something like that. Do you think there was something that he was confused about because of the brain damage, because of the, CT, all that, because of all the trauma and all that combined? You know what I mean? Do you think there was something there that he perhaps thought in a weird, twisted way, he thought he was doing something religious, I could say?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Even though, I mean, we know that he placed Bibles next to the bodies of his wife and his son after he did what he did. Obviously, that kind of behavior is not condoned in the Bible, but yeah, I do think that, I mean, the evidence shows that that's probably what he was thinking because of some of the things that he was writing that they found. Like, I guess they found a lot of stuff where he's talking about like with Eddie, like he's saying, like writing letters to Eddie saying we're going to be together soon, like what are you talking about? Like he's dead. Like Eddie's been gone, and that's a part of that process of just, you got to move forward. I'm not saying forget Eddie, like obviously you guys have done tremendous things together. You traveled the world together. You both became champion at the same time in the biggest promotion in the world. And, I'm not saying to forget all of that, but you got to get past that point, man. Like he's gone. He's not coming back. And for some people, they just can't get over that hump, man. And these sort of things happen, man. And I do think in his head, he was thinking, yeah, like we're all going to be together again. Like, but I mean, again, that's somebody that's just messed up here, has to do something like that, man.
There has to be an imbalance, obviously, in your brain for you to rationalize what he did. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's that. Okay. As far as Eddie, as far as Chris Benoit, do you think WWE made the right choice by wiping him out of the history books?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it sucks because he was such a good worker, man.
Can I ask you something?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so obviously I don't condone what he did at all. Okay. And I'm all no Hall of Fame. I agree. You know what I mean? But can they really wipe him out? Like, can you really wipe out that he became champion in the history books?
No.
Like you got to tell somebody who ran the order and beat for the title, right? It's not like, what are they going to do? Just pretend it was vacant?
Yeah. Well, they've done their best to not acknowledge him, I guess.
Right.
I mean, I guess that's the best way to put it. But I've been watching, since we've been on this quarantine thing for the last month or so. Been watching a lot of old wrestling, and he's still there. So if you're gonna completely wipe somebody out, like that would, I don't know how they would do that. That would be impossible because, like you said, he's held belts. They've exchanged hands. He's won it from somebody. Somebody's won it from him. It'd be impossible, but I don't see any chance of him ever becoming or getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And again, it's terrible because his work. There's no doubt about it. Based on his work, there's really no doubt about it. He should be in there, but because of his actions, it will never happen.
Shout out to Man in Water. How's it going, bro? I haven't seen you in a while. Right, Chicano Prophet, member on here. Thank you for the support, bro. Exactly. His career will always be available to see, and he was in a good era of wrestling. Man. All right. Chao Guerrero said himself, Eddie died in his arms. Chris Benoit took it worse and acted like he lost his spouse. We get it, bro. We get it. All right. Call him the Shadow Man and black out his body every time he appears on screen. Call him the Shadow. I got it. Yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, you know what's weird, bro? You can't even call him by his nickname because of what he did, bro.
I know.
Oh, stop calling him Benoit. Call him the Crippler. Probably not. There's probably worse.
No.
To call him that. Okay. Chicano Prophet, if you wanted to come on for the Montreal Screwjob, we're going to go to that next. Let me know, and I'll shoot you a link. You have any final thoughts on this, Chief Funk? The Dark Side documentary? Chris Benoit?
No, just, like I said earlier, I thought it was a well put together piece. And now that, like I said, now that I'm in a situation that's much different from when these things first happened, it hit me pretty hard in the heart, because of, like I said, I could never imagine doing something like that. And to relive it, man, I got a little emotional watching it, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but Benoit, man, he's one of the best guys to ever do it, man. And as far as, like I said, as far as the work goes, man, there's no doubt about it. The dude's a Hall of Famer. But unfortunately, things happen, and we'll never see that.
Apparently, his son, David Benoit, coordinated LM, is pursuing a career in wrestling.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah,
that's crazy. Like, if you're a promoter, do you ask him to change his last name? Go by a different name?
I heard they said he wants to take the Benoit name. Or I thought I heard Jim Cornette say recently that somebody told him that he wants to wrestle as Chris Benoit Jr., which would be, I don't see him ever going to WWE with that name. I don't even know if All Elite stays alive, if he'll make it there with that name,
There you go. That link is only for Chicano Prophet. Anybody else, I mean, you're just going to be backstage. You know what I mean? Shout out to Coach K. I believe that's Mr. Hellraiser over here. Zone 6. Shout out to you, bro. Later tonight, I'll be doing that welterweight tournament. So everybody stay tuned for that one for sure. There's a link, Chicano. Chief Funk. Here's what I want to say about this, bro. At the end of the day, I can't do it. I can't go back and watch Benoit matches, bro. I can't do it. Like, all I think about is what he did. You know what I mean? Like, I watch, like, I'm watching the match and I say, why'd you do that? You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's tough, man. I've been watching them, and like, of course I enjoy the matches because they were so good, but then at the same time, you think about everything that he did. It's like, damn.
All I think about is what he did. Oh, I think you got some feedback. I'm watching the match and I say,
hold on one second.
all right, there we go. All All right, we'll get you on a little bit. All right, Chicano. Yeah, I was hearing myself like 10 seconds ago. But yeah, man, I just want to ask Chicano what he thinks about this before we get to the Bret Hart portion. Chicano,
What's good, bro?
What's happening?
Whoa, I think I got some feedback. Yeah, there's still feedback, bro.
Sorry about that. Let me see what's going on. Shit.
What about now? Yeah, I was hearing myself. Yeah. Am I the only one that hears that, G-Funk? Yeah, man. I just want.
No, I hear it too. I think maybe he needs to either mute his mic or something, you know?
Well, because it's kind of behind. It has to be he's playing the video somehow.
Oh, maybe on his phone or something.
Right. All right. Let's give it a shot here. Chicano.
All right. I think we're all set.
Yeah, we are all set. There we go.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys.
Hey, before we get to the Bret Hart thing, first of all, thank you very much for your membership.
For sure.
You're officially a dragon. All right. But really quick, what's your opinion on this Benoit thing, bro?
Well, I was really more into the Attitude Era and before that, but I did follow a bit of Benoit in that era as well. And my quick opinion on it is that it's just a really tragic incident that happened. I wish that there was a little bit more information on it. I feel like that we didn't get enough information to kind of get a full picture of things. I think things ended very sadly. And I do agree with what you all were saying. I do think that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I think he had a really good run. It's a shame that his run can't be celebrated because there's always going to be that stain. But I understand where WWE is coming from.
I want to ask you this before we get to the Bret Hart thing. I want to ask you this, and I'm not asking in any way, shape, or form to debate or anything like that. I just want your perspective, and for anyone that may have the same perspective, right? And then we'll kind of go to the next topic after you say what you say. I know you're a guy that believes in spirituality and all that. Do you think that played any role in what Chris Benoit did?
I don't think so. I think it was more of like a mental health issue. I think that some people who have mental health issues and also believe in higher powers or spirits, sometimes they can kind of get mixed up in the head and can really damage somebody mentally. And they can do things maybe but I don't think that had anything to do with that, in my opinion. I said, I think he just had some mental health issues.
Gotcha. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about the Montreal. But before we talk about the Montreal screw job, okay, can we give us, and I'll start with you since you just came on, Chicano. Give us your opinion on Bret Hart in general. Before we get to the Montreal screw job, how did you first watch Bret Hart, and what's your opinion about him as a professional wrestler?
Well, I think I'm pretty much the same age as you guys, and I grew up as a child watching Bret Hart. I thought he was great. He captured my imagination. When I was a kid, my dad took me to a show, and he was there. I thought he was a great wrestler. I thought he had a cool gimmick at the time. And so, watching him and even watching him now, I think he's a tremendous wrestler. Like, his style is a little bit different than what people tend to enjoy these days. But the era in which he did it, it was amazing. And I thought he told a really good story, really good ring work. He sold a lot very well, kind of a pioneer in a lot of ways, too. And he carried the mantle for WWE for a while when all the big muscle guys were over at WCW. So I have a lot of respect for what he did. And then we can get into the Montreal Screwjob after that. I have a different opinion on how he carried himself up to the Montreal Screwjob and afterwards.
We might have a debate. I like it. But G-Funk, tell us about Bret Hart, bro. Like, what about the excellence of execution? The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. But that's what he said. What were your thoughts on Bret Hart? Like, when you first watched them, just your general thoughts on Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah, I remember him back in the 80s when I was a kid watching wrestling, originally with the Hart Foundation himself, Jim Neidhart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart with the big, long orange gold tee, and Jimmy Hart, the manager. But his work, man, was always something that stood out to me. Even before I knew about the inside of wrestling. You could always tell that he was somebody that took this thing I guess, a little more serious than most guys. Not to say that nobody else did, but I think that because he comes from a family of wrestlers, you know, he came from the Stampede Wrestling that his dad was in charge of. You know, he was literally grew up in the business, lived the business, knew how to sell punches, knew how to give punches, and to me, he made it look the most real. You know, to me, and I'll never forget always hearing that legendary voice, Gorilla Monsoon, always saying the excellence of execution. You know, and that's exactly what he was to me, man. To me, in my opinion, Bret Hart is the best professional wrestler to ever do it, man. As far as in the ring work, promos, you know, they weren't so good early on in his WWF career, but as Vince started to, you know, push him as a singles wrestler, they got better, you know, especially towards the end of his career. But to me, man, no doubt about it, man. The guy was the best, man.
Absolutely. My StreamYard is not updating my comments. I apologize for that, guys. But as far as the Bret Hart, look, obviously Bret Hart is my favorite professional wrestler of all time. Okay, I grew up a Bret Hart fan. Anyone who could make Pink look good is pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he had to match, you know, the black to match with it, I guess. But the Pink and black attack, you guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
You know, but
We ain't talking Chavez Jr.
no speedos, none of that. You know what I mean? But I enjoyed watching Bret Hart wrestle, man. The dude could tell a story, and that's just, you don't see that in wrestling anymore. Let me explain to you guys what I mean by that. Okay, if Bret Hart ran his knee on the ring post, okay, he was limping the rest of the match. His leg was hurt. Okay. He was going to sell that leg, okay? You were going to believe, you're going to start wondering, is his leg fucked up or is he just like acting? Like, you're not going to know, okay? All right? Like, he's going to sell that leg, right? He's going to, and the wrestling match going to, like, you're going to be wondering about that leg, right? If he was wrestling a big man like, you know, Kevin Nash, right? They worked a match, you know, a certain way, like he had to break him down, okay, to get him, you know, on the mat in order to, you know, make it even, okay? All right, if he was wrestling a guy like Shawn Michaels, right, he would allow Shawn Michaels to do his flying stuff and all his acrobatics and let him shine a little bit, but they would still tell a story. If it was wrestling a 1, 2, 3 kid, he would tell a story. This guy knew better than everybody how to go to a commercial break. Right? Nowadays, like, they just go to a commercial break. Like, it makes no fucking sense. Well, what if the match ends during the commercial break? All right? Like Bret Hart in the 1, 2, 3, like, he actually, if you guys remember, his foot was on the rope when the ref did 1, 2, 3, right? And then Bret Hart told the ref, well, my foot was on the rope, so restart the match. And while that commotion was going on, they went to commercial. Just little things like that. And they came back from commercial, and we're going to restart the match, everybody. Blah, 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 right? Just those little intricacies that a lot of wrestling fans do not pay attention to nowadays. Man of Water brought up the mic. Here's my issue with people and how they grade people on the mic, wrestlers, okay? Everyone thinks every professional wrestler has to be like Ric Flair or The Rock or even like Stone Cold, you know what I mean? Where you're just a wizard with a mic and you could sell to the people. The trick with the mic is people just have to believe you're authentic. They just have to believe you, right? Like if you say, I'm going to whoop that dude's ass, do you believe them? Yes or no? That's it. That's all it is. It's believability, right? I don't believe any of the wrestlers on TV today. I don't believe them. I don't believe they could whoop my ass, much less, you know, their opponent. So Bret Hart, I just believed him. He was just a champion, a wrestler's wrestler. You know what I mean? Was he a wizard on the mic? Absolutely not. But you still believed him. You, like, this motherfucker, right, was 11, you know, just a little under 6 feet tall. He could wrestle giants and you believed it. He could tell a good story, right? That's what a good worker is. And that's why he's, in my opinion, the best to ever do it. Okay. But let's talk about the Montreal Screwjob and the lead up to it. Okay. Vince McMahon was losing all his talent, right? WCW was growing. NWO, bro, which was awesome. I loved it. You know what I mean? I didn't admit it at the time because I was a WWF guy. My brother was a WCW guy, right? But it was awesome. You know, they had the cruiserweights over there. They just had more talent. It just looked like a bigger, more legit league, right? So he couldn't lose Bret Hart. Vince McMahon offered Bret Hart a $1.5 million per year, 20-year long contract, which was insane. Of course, Bret signed it. A couple months later, Vince McMahon decides, not so much just decides, but he doesn't believe that he's getting the payoff for that. They're still losing the ratings war. They're not getting enough revenue to pay Bret Hart and also keep the other talent like Shawn Michaels, etc., under their umbrella. So he talks to Bret Hart, and he even tells Bret Hart, in fairness, he says, use me as leverage, Bret. Get as much money as you can from Eric Bischoff. Tell him I'm going to offer you so much, even if I'm not, whatever, and then get more money. Bret got a big-ass contract, and he was going to leave to WCW. He was a champion at the time. He was a WWF champion. His last match was going to be Survivor Series against Shawn Michaels. Bret didn't want to lose to Shawn Michaels. Vince couldn't convince either one of them to any type of finish. Bret wanted to vacate the title the next night on Raw. Vince didn't want to take any chances. He didn't want his champion to be on WCW with WWE. Right? He didn't want that. And I understand that. And we're gonna dive into all this. That's pretty much the story. What ended up happening, he lied to Bret, and they ended up basically screwing him over. Whether you agree with it or not, it's up for debate. But that's what they did. He called for the bell when Bret wasn't expecting that. And everybody knows the rest. He punched Vince in the back, by the way. Okay? He said he hit him with an uppercut. He said a Mike Tyson uppercut, he said. I doubt it looked as good as Mike Tyson's uppercut, but it's how Bret describes it, right? And then he left. The dude left, and he went to WCW. G-Funk, what is your opinion on the lead-up and the actual Montreal Screwjob? What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man, because, not to go too far back, but this thing between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart goes way, way back, at least 3-4 years before 97 Survivor Series. But to make a long story short, like you said, he didn't want to drop the belt to Shawn Michaels because Shawn Michaels literally told him himself, like months before that happened, like, I'll never do the same for you, And so Bret was like, you know what, this guy, he doesn't have the respect for me, so why should I drop the belt to him, Not to mention he had what's called reasonable control over his character in his contract. So
creative control, yes.
Yeah, so it's not like Vince could just say, hey, you know what, we're taking the belt off you whether you like it or not, And then, in fairness to Vince, he kind of exposed more of the inside business the next night on Raw, where he's talking about, there's a tradition here in wrestling, where if the guy's going out, he's got to lose on his way out. He's got to drop the belt, which is true. But again, you give the guy creative control.
Not really true, but I'm going to touch on that later.
Yeah, you give the guy, you gave him creative control, so now you got to live with it. You know, he's got to be okay with the finish. Apparently, they couldn't come to an agreement on how to finish the match, and we ended up getting what we got, which was the infamous Montreal screw job. It was crazy to see, man. Like, you know, first watching it, it's like you didn't know what the hell's going on, you know, and then to see him do the WCW in the middle of the ring there, that was like, wow. You know, that was like, he's really pissed. Like that's what made me believe he was really pissed at what happened, because that's just something you don't do. And at the time, I don't even know if they were acknowledging, you know, WCW at the time, like, because, you know, wrestling was still kind of in that area where it was like, you know, do we think it's real? Do we think it's fake? You know, and like, I don't really remember hearing guys from either side mentioning anything other than the outsiders, you know, who kind of, I guess, made it seem like they were still working for WWF when they really weren't, when they made their debut. But, you know, I think a lot of the blame has to go to Vince for giving him that power, not taking the belt off him sooner. And, you know, Bret too, you know, I mean, I guess he could have bent a little bit and said, you know what, I'll drop the belt, but we got to do it a different way. You know, I know he wanted to come on Raw and just hand the belt over to to Vince. But again, it goes back to the whole Monday Night War thing. Like, he didn't trust Eric Bischoff with Bret Hart. He had already had an incident with Alundra Blaze, who left and went over to WCW, changed her name to Medusa, but she took the WWF women's belt, just threw it in the trash live on Nitro. So he didn't want that to happen again. So he had to do what he had to do to get his belt back, you know. And unfortunately, he had to screw over Bret Hart, man. But there's a lot of behind the scenes and a lot of theories. I don't know. There's a lot of wrestlers that think that the whole thing was staged. And they make some good points. So I guess I'll just pass the mic over to Chicano Prophet now, and I guess we could dive in a little to that stuff too, man.
Yeah, no, I want to talk about that a little bit later too, about it possibly being staged as well. But as far as like the lead up goes, I totally agree with you, G-Funk. Like it's really fascinating to look at the dynamics between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. There was some real animosity there, and it was building up for years. Like, if you watch some of those Monday night episodes, man, talking about like the sunny days, you know, and just like Bret being like, oh, you had to bear back your way to, you know, to having Vince, you know, help you because you're his boy. Like, it was just good shit talking, you know, and you couldn't really tell like what was real and what wasn't in that lead up. And then the way things ended up playing out, like I kind of see both sides of it. Like, I see where Vince was coming from and Bret. And it does seem like they did have a kinship. And I do think that it wasn't really personal between either of them. And I do think that it was the right move for Bret to go on to the other side to WCW, especially considering, because like you said, Vince was losing money, couldn't afford to keep Bret. I also see how Bret Hart didn't want to lose in Montreal. That makes a lot of sense to me too. And my understanding is that back in the day with the business, that the person who was the belt holder did draw a lot of money. So I understand why they had to keep the belt on him as long as possible, because they didn't necessarily have Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold that were big draws quite yet. So it's a lot of fascinating little aspects about the Montreal screw job and the lead up to it. And as far as the call itself goes, it's funny that it ended up kind of like working out for Vince McMahon ultimately. Worked out really well for him. I don't think it really worked out so well for Bret, besides him making his money. I think it's nice that they're all together now in WWE. It's nice to see the perspective, because over the years we've seen a lot of different takes that Bret Hart has had about the Montreal screw job. And it's fascinating to go back and look at the whole thing.
Well, I'll say this: Bret's always had the same story. His story's never changed.
Yeah, he's been pretty consistent with this story.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you know, he's not as bitter about it now that he's in the fold. You know, he's kind of had like a chip on his shoulder about it. And now that he's in the fold, you know, he's not as
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he still says it kind of bothers him a little bit, but yeah, of course, he's kind of over it in that sense. But let's go piece by piece. So Bret Hart puts over, as you guys know, right? He puts over Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12. You remember the boyhood dream story and all that?
Yeah, the Iron Man match. I remember that.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Iron Man match. That's the last time the WWE actually had to chase a storyline where a guy is chasing a belt. You know what I mean? Look, a lot of people don't know this, but Shawn Michaels was supposed to put over Bret Hart on WrestleMania 13, right? As a return favor. Shawn Michaels lost his smile. I don't know what the fuck was going on with him. Okay, and he was claiming that his back hurt and all this other nonsense, and never put over Bret Hart. That's why they ended up doing the Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart match, which I guess maybe we all agree we're kind of glad that match happened. You know what I mean? Because that's what started the whole Stone Cold movement. You know, that match. All right. Obviously, Bret Hart was gone about 10 months later. But look, this guy, Shawn Michaels didn't want to play ball. All right. Shawn Michaels, multiple times. I mean, Vince wants to talk about the time-honored tradition, but when it was time for Hulk Hogan to put over Bret Hart, he allowed Hulk Hogan to say, "No, I'm not going to put over Bret Hart. I'll put over Yokozuna." All right. He allowed him to do that, right? When Shawn Michaels, go look at his record, like go look at it, bro. He rarely lost titles, whether it was Intercontinental, okay, the World title, rarely. He always either got depressed or he got some injury. Every single time, conveniently, when it was time for him to put somebody over, right, including Bret Hart. So all these guys.
What about Austin? What do you think about WrestleMania 14? Do you think that was him doing a job for Austin, or
he almost wasn't going to do it, but the Undertaker told him he's going to whoop his ass backstage. Okay, he told me better put him over. I'm going to beat your ass, right? But they had to twist his arm to do that. You know what I mean? They didn't even know if Shawn Michaels was going to show up, bro, to WrestleMania 14. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
It's
different time.
Yeah.
the guy was a prick, like Jim Cornette says?
Bret offered, I'll put over Stone Cold. I'll give the belt to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He offered to do that. Right? He offered different options. Second, Vince is the one that broke the contract, not Bret. Vince is the one that said, oops, I can't pay you this contract, so we need you out of this contract, Bret. Is it a time-honored tradition to break contracts? Is that a time-honored tradition? You offered him the contract. He signed it. You broke it. Like, that's just the truth, right? Now, is Bret innocent in all this? Absolutely not. Do I think it's ridiculous that he didn't want to lose in Canada? Like, yes, right? But at the end of the day, he didn't want to put this dude over. He didn't want to lose in Canada, right? I think what he should have done is allowed HBK to cheat to beat him. You know what I mean? Hit him with a low blow and get some heat off of that. And, you know what I mean? He should have at least agreed to that, but Bret wouldn't agree to anything. You know what I mean? So he did not want to put this guy over whatsoever. But I lean towards favoring Bret here, bro. Like, I agree with Bret Hart more than I do with Vince McMahon. I think Vince should have handled this. He knew Bret was leaving months ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why is he waiting till last second, you know, for Bret Hart to put over Shawn Michaels if you don't even know he's going to do it? You know what I mean? So like that's just my thoughts on that. By default, Vince broke the contract. So and at the end of the day, till he was there, he had creative control. And he want to put over Shawn Michaels. He should have figured it out. Okay? That's what he should have done. Right? But unfortunately, he did the double cross, you know. But Chicano, who do you agree with in this whole thing, man? Or how do you lean?
Well, you know, I like I was saying a little bit earlier, I tend to lean towards thinking that they both had to do what they had to do. I don't think that it was personal either way. I think that Bret Hart should have put Shawn Michaels over regardless. I realized that there was personal animosity between him and Shawn Michaels, but I think the right thing to do for a business that's trying to survive and have a ship that doesn't sink is to at least give over the belt somehow. I understand that he didn't want to do it over in Montreal, and things were getting tight. And I did a little bit of research on it, and my understanding was that like it was important to have him have the belt because whoever was like the title holder, that meant that they were a draw and that they would draw money. And sometimes when a prime wrestler didn't have a belt, the company wouldn't draw as much money. So I think Vince McMahon shot himself in the foot a little bit by not, like you said, he should have taken care of this a little bit sooner. That's generally my perspectives on it and the lead up to, and then the Montreal Screwjob itself, that type of choice for, Bret Hart being made to do business, and Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Vince kind of coming up with this game plan. I think it was a very good move by Vince McMahon. I mean, it ballsy move, but I mean, it ultimately worked out. I think that Bret Hart should have jumped on WCW a little bit sooner, as soon as that ended, because it ended up having people like me want to see what was going on. And I didn't see Bret Hart, but I ended up seeing what was going on with WWE, if memory serves, or WWF at the time. And ultimately, they ended up using that storyline a little bit more with Steve Austin and, showing Vince McMahon kind of stealing the belt from Stone Cold. So they kind of implemented everything into that storyline. It's amazing to see how it ultimately worked out for Vince McMahon in the WWE. Absolutely, man.
I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, I don't have a lot of disagreements other than Bret should have put him over. You know what I mean? But I guess is it because Vince is the owner? His call is the last call, whether it's fair or not.
Well, to me, I mean, at the end of the day, like I appreciate how seriously Bret Hart takes his profession, but it is just a wrestling business. These titles aren't real. I think that if he did have a certain type of kinship with Vince McMahon, the least he could have done was given him a champion before he left, especially considering how well WCW was doing and how well Bret Hart was going to get paid in the future.
Yes, he definitely got a big contract, that's for sure. G-Funk, how do you lean towards this, man? Who's more at fault? Like, what's your nuance?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think more of the blame goes to Vince for this. Obviously, he knew that Bret was leaving. He told him, hey, I cannot honor your contract. Go talk to Eric Bischoff. Go to WCW. Like, this guy knew it was coming, so he had time to figure out a scenario to get him to drop the belt before he leaves. And again, to kind of back up what Chicano Prophet said too, Vince was, Bret was real stubborn about, what he wanted to do and wasn't given an inch, at all. But at the same time, I don't blame him, because Shawn Michaels is, like Cornette calls him, a prick, he even though they had all that heat backstage, Bret Hart promised him, he said, look, man, you can always count on me being professional. I'll never try to hurt you or anything in the ring. And Shawn Michaels literally told him, like, I'm not going to do the same for you, So,
go ahead.
So Bret's like, hey, I'm not gonna put you over. I'm not dropping the belt to you. So I understand why he did it. I just don't think it was the right thing, especially because we all know, again, he didn't really earn the belt. We know that it was placed on him by Vince. So but that's the one thing that I like about Bret Hart, is that he took this thing so seriously, and it showed in his matches, over the years, how dedicated he was to the craft of professional wrestling. And Vince got to handle it a better way, man. This guy was a guy who worked more days than he was contractually obligated to work a lot of years. He was a hell of a wrestler, man. And for him to do that, man, I was mad, man. I gotta say, I was mad when I seen it. I was upset.
Well,
but he got paid. He got paid going to WCW, man.
Yeah, he definitely got paid, and I want to talk about that. So, look, at the end of the day, I mean, it happened, and I still side with Bret for the most part. I think WWE is also very dishonest about a lot of the things that happen. So they've changed the stories a lot. I have no idea why Triple H had any say at the time. Okay, that he was the one telling Sean, like, no, you're not gonna let him win. He's leaving. I don't know what Triple H had to do with anything, but maybe that's why Bret hates Triple H. But what were you guys' thoughts when here is a dude that just punched Vince in the face? Okay, Vince goes on TV, he shows a black eye and everything. Okay, we know he punched a dude in the face. We know he just got screwed over, right? The hottest wrestler in the industry by far. He comes in and he's gonna ref a match. He's gonna be a referee. What were your thoughts, Chicano?
You're absolutely right. I think that they should have started off a little bit hotter. I mean, Bret Hart was the hottest commodity, and I wanted to see what he was going to do in WCW, and he really didn't do much to start out. And on top of that, too, I think he could have talked a little bit more shit initially. I mean, we're talking about a guy who had beaten Stone Cold and kind of did like a heel turn. So he had a win over that. And technically, you could say, well, he did. Shawn Michaels didn't actually beat him; it was stolen from him. So he had a lot of leverage coming in, and he was going to the hotter side. It's really interesting the way they played it. I don't know, Bret Hart. My memory serves that Bret Hart kind of made it sound like this was a lot of creative's idea as for how for him to come in, but it should have been done a lot better. I didn't really enjoy his WCW stint in general. Watching it, I think that he could have done a lot better, but it played out how it played out.
I think to me, he looked out of place.
Yeah,
right? He looked out of place, and they just didn't have him anywhere. It's weird how they brought him in. What I would have done, I would have announced that the winner of, this is what I would have done, right? I would have said the winner of Sting versus Hulk Hogan, the winner of that match, right? It's gonna face Bret Hart at the next pay-per-view to see who's the undisputed world champion. That's what I would have done. Right off the bat. Right?
They could have done a whole lot with Bret Hart, man, and they just completely dropped the ball.
The uncrowned champion, the real WWE champion, they could have gone with it, bro. You know what I mean? They could have gone cold with it, like the real champion from up north, whatever it is. They could have done it. But go ahead, G-Funk.
Yeah, that was I get the whole reason why they wanted him to be the referee for that event, because they wanted to play on what happened in Montreal. They wanted, and of course, in classic WCW fashion, they dropped the ball on the finish again.
That was Hogan's fault.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a botch.
Yeah.
It was by design.
And in my opinion, the referee that they chose to do the fast count, Nick Patrick, I can't stand the way that this guy does his 3 count. It's just, I don't know. I don't even know how he would even do a fast count or make it look like a fast, because he does this weird thing where he's jiggling his hand and he hits the mat. You need a clean 1, 2, 3.
There's an explanation to that, right? We're used to the way the WWE guys do it. You know what I mean? But the truth is, in the South, which is where WCW was based on, like Atlanta, the counts were slower.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, there was a few guys, who was that? I think his name was Charles Robinson.
But I have a but, though. At this point, WCW was doing the counts at the same speed as WWE in all their matches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they were a lot cleaner than Nick Patrick. Like that dude, he was a blonde-haired dude that Sid Vicious dropped on his neck. One of those referees. I think his name was Charles Robinson, I think. Yeah. And he had a count. I think he would have been a good referee for that fast count, because me, like everyone else, I'm sure both of you guys, when that finish happened and Bret Hart is saying you did a fast count, I'm thinking, what are you talking about? That was that was a regular count, But I understand why they did what they did, because they wanted to play on the Montreal screw job, make it seem like Sting got screwed over and things like that. But I think it was just, in grand WCW fashion, they dropped the damn ball, and they could have done a lot of good things, man, because, again, Bret Hart was the hottest, I guess, free agent on the market, at the time. They had Sting, who was over like a son of a bitch and didn't even wrestle in over a year. You know,
Right.
they had the NWO was at its prime. Like they could have literally took Vince out at that point,
Yes.
and they didn't do it.
They did not do it. Man, look, they botched this bad, bro. Okay. They did a lot of mistakes. And I mean, you bring in Bret Hart, and everything that it seems to me like they sabotaged it. Like somebody behind the scenes did not want Bret Hart to be over. You know what I mean? That's what it seems like to me. Like somebody was like, how can we like stop his momentum? You know, like how can we just stop this guy's momentum? And that's what they did. Even his matches weren't that good in WCW.
No,
Some of them were okay, but
and that's hard.
we actually talked about him earlier. But his match with Chris Benoit after Owen Hart's death, that was pretty good.
Yeah, and you know that's a very hard thing to do, to be in a bad match with Bret. I mean, this guy could wrestle anybody and make him look like $1 million, you know. And I just don't know, man. I guess bad luck, whatever, you know. But WCW did a piss poor job with one of the best wrestlers to ever do it, you know, and in my opinion, the best to ever do it. But you know, it is what it is, man.
I know. Rashawn Williams said Bret should have been feuding with the NWO. Yes, of course. Like, you know what I mean? Those are the main bad guys. Okay, and Shawn Michaels on Raw on the mic said, "My friends over there are gonna fuck you up," pretty much. Okay, like he should have actually said something about that, right? He should have gotten the mic and been like, "Your friend didn't beat me. Vince rang the damn bell. Okay, but I'm gonna take my anger out on you." You know what I mean? The Click, they could have done the whole Click thing. You know what I mean? They could have done so much, bro. They fucked up the whole thing. The whole thing was great. I think they fucked up a lot. But man, this has been a great conversation. One more thing I want to say about Bret Hart. I hate Goldberg. Goldberg ended his career, bro. Like with the stupidest thing. Like it was just stupid. Like he legitimately kicked him in the face. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just dumb. But could you guys imagine? I remember I used to read a Bret Hart's vlog on BretHart.com when websites were still like a thing. You know, I mean, everybody uses social media now, but he actually wrote I remember reading one where he said, I would have loved to have wrestled Kurt Angle. You know what I mean? Kurt Angle, I don't think he knew about what happened, but he wanted to wrestle Bret Hart at WrestleMania. You know? But could you imagine all the matches Bret Hart could have had? Like if that never happened and he returned to WCW. I'm sorry, to WWE. With whether it's Shawn Michaels, again, I guess. But well, not Shawn Michaels, but you know, but Kurt Angle especially, and a lot of the other talent. You know, how do you guys think a Bret Hart run would have looked if that Goldberg thing never happened? Chicano. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it could have been an awesome run. I think that looking back on his WCW run, part of me kind of wonders if his heart was still in it a little bit and how good his body was holding up in general. I do think wrestling matches with Kurt Angle would have been phenomenal. I think he would have had a great opportunity to have had an extended run or perhaps kind of dip back in, kind of like Roddy Piper did. There was so much opportunity if he had a chance to come back in the fold a little bit earlier. Who knows? It's interesting to see that it did play out the way it did play out. And before we do end, I did want to talk about G-Funk's, what we were talking about earlier about it possibly being an inside job and what your theories were on that real quick if you had the time.
We'll touch on that next for sure. I forgot about that for sure. G-Funk, how do you see his final, like, what do you think we missed, man? Do you think we maybe didn't miss much, or do you think he could have had some phenomenal matches?
Man, just thinking about a feud and him having a run with Kurt Angle, like, oh my gosh, those would have been some amazing matches. Both dudes are really, really good in the ring.
Dude, against a young AJ Styles, bro. Against
man,
we could go over a lot of names, but yeah.
yeah, those would have been some great matches. It's too bad Bill Goldberg got in the way, you know. And not to just completely trash Goldberg. I mean, he wasn't the best technical wrestler. I mean, in his defense, the guy just started wrestling literally a few years before.
Yeah.
So he was still green himself, but he was so over that they had to do something with him. They would have been foolish not to.
They should have just stuck to spear, jackhammer.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know where these kicks came from. He started incorporating them in his matches, but
he was throwing legitimate kicks, bro. You know what I mean? Like what are you doing? Bro?
Yeah,
yeah.
And he heard a lot of wrestling. Who his name was Ming at the time. He was Haku in the WWF. I mean, there's a clip on YouTube you guys can see. He literally dropped this guy in his head. Like I thought he killed him once. Like, I don't even know how he survived it all.
You're cutting off a little bit there, G-Funk.
Oh, my bad. Can you hear me now? I
can hear you now, yeah. What?
Yo.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Goldberg, man, he just, he was a guy who was at the right place at the right time, but don't know if he was the actual right guy for the job, because he just, again, he wasn't a seasoned guy, and unfortunately he kicked Bret Hart in the face, and, I can't imagine having to finish the rest of that match with a concussion like that. That was probably not only did that happen, but I think something else happened when they had a spot where Bret was going to that figure four on the ring post. Yeah, and then he was supposed to hold him so that he wouldn't really end up hitting his head again on the ground. I mean, that was just a terrible match. But the run he could have had, man, if that would have never happened and going back to WWF.
Right.
Wow. It would have been amazing.
It would have. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that never happened. Look, there is some. I'm not totally sold, but maybe I could be convinced. I don't know. But there is some, there's a good explanation as to the Montreal Screwjob being fixed. Okay? A work, I should say. One, if you knew that they may have the ref ring the bell, why would you allow yourself to be put in a submission hold? It's number one. That is evidence number one, in fairness. Second, why would Vince keep the belt on him all the way to the last day if he's about to go to WCW? Right? That's evidence number two. And then Vince's speech after the whole incident happened, starting the Vince McMahon character, pretty much. Right? I think all those things just happen organically. But G-Funk, because I know Chicano, we're going to leave you for last, right? But G-Funk, what are your thoughts? Are you suspicious of anything or anything like that?
I mean, a little bit. And I think for me, some of the things that Scott Hall said about the actual event at Survivor Series, where it's like, when Bret goes for the reverse after the bell's already been rung, and he's looking like, he doesn't look like he's too mad. Maybe he's just staying in character, and he's just not knowing what's going on. But then for him to stand up and look at Vince from down in the ring and hock a loogie right in his eye, and then for the camera to be right there perfectly right on Vince, zoom right in on him, and then to literally spell out WCW on a WWF pay-per-view. That right there kind of is like one of the ones that's the best evidence that it could have been staged, because I don't think they would have
already though. Were they off the air?
I don't think so. No, I don't think
so. Because yeah, I think they were, bro. I think it ended with like Shawn Michaels going like this, and it went off the air. If I remember I could be wrong about that. But the other thing with Scott Hall saying that's a hard camera. That camera doesn't move. That camera's always there. You know what I mean? And so when they have on the stance on the opposite where you see the fans when they're wrestling, that's a hard camera. And I don't think, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong about it, I'm wrong about it. But I don't think that they aired that live when it happened. Oh, what happened to Chicano? I don't know, but come back, Chicano. Chicano Prophet dropped out. Is that G-Funk? G-Funk. Whoa, I think G-Funk's frozen. Can you guys hear me? What the hell's going on? Hello? I lose connection, did I? Hold up. I cannot see G-Funk right now, right? I don't know what happened, guys. What the hell happened? I don't know what happened. Am I still live? Eddie Allen could hear me. I don't know what happened. G-Funk and Chicano Prophet, click on the link. There was some other people that clicked on it, guys, but I told you guys like who's going to be on here. You know what I mean? Was it a work? NLM. Well, what do you think? Was it a work? What's up, G-Funk?
Man, sorry about that. I guess a little glitch happened there in the internet.
I don't know what happened because Chicano Prophet was kicked out too. So I have no idea what happened, but I don't think you finished your point and stuff.
Oh yeah, I was just about the theories of it being fixed.
Right.
Yeah. That was pretty much it. But I do think that it was a legit screw job.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those. I think the only one that holds weight with me again was just. If I have to go back and watch, I might have to watch the Survivor Series tonight to see. Yeah, the WCW.
You really think that's good evidence? You really think that?
I think it's. I wouldn't say it's good evidence. I think it's the best evidence of a possible.
Like I think, like
fix,
if I was mad, I'm going to the competition. I'd probably do it too. You know, like
yeah, that's true too. But then here's the thing: if they actually showed it on camera on the pay-per-view, then that's something that would make me think, okay, like they have to know he's going to do that, or they would never show that. Like if they see him spelling out WCW, they would just be like, all right, cut that camera, we'll go to another camera. You know
what? I'll be honest with you, bro. I think it literally went off the air right after that. I honestly like
it's possible, yeah.
Like that was just what the Hart camera recorded because even the angles that aren't playing live, they're still videotaping. They still have that, you know. But I could be wrong about that. But Chicano, talk to us.
Yeah, you know, I agree with you guys. Like, I think it's something fun. I'm a conspiracy theorist by nature, so I like to like close my eyes and squint and try to see something there. And as far as Bret Hart having a clue ahead of time, I think that he did know something might have been up, but I don't think that he agreed to it. Although I could see why some people would make the argument. Maybe he could have seen something like that coming, especially like you were saying with that reverse hold. It's something fun to entertain, but I think ultimately, another thing too that I forgot to mention was that it seems to me like Vince McMahon had a pretty good relationship still with Owen Hart, and ultimately Bret Hart did come back into the fold later on. And Bret Hart is the ultimate kayfabe guy, a guy like him would have possibly tried to pull it off or would have considered doing it. I wouldn't put it past Bret Hart, but I don't think that it was something that they all agreed to. But it's fun to entertain.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. To me, the biggest evidence is not the WCW. It's the fact that he allowed Shawn Michaels to put him in a sharpshooter. You know what I mean? And it's possible that, you know, I think what happened was I just think Bret honestly felt that it was going to end with the whole screw up in the end where everybody goes to the ring and it ends in a no contest. I think he believed that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think that's what it was.
And for me, like, I'm not saying that I believe that it was fixed. I honestly think it was a real thing. But I think what made me really believe it was real is that Bret Hart went on, I think it was like national news and talked about it.
Yeah.
You know, he broke kayfabe himself. You know, after he was pissed.
I want to give a shout out to Jose Anaya, who did join the membership earlier today. Shout out to you, bro. And okay, AMG2 joined as well. Much appreciated. You guys could join the D-Style boxing membership. Just click on the join next to where it says D-Style on the subscription area right below the video, and you could join as low as just 99 cents a month. Right. With that said, man, let's go with you, Chicano. Any final thoughts, bro?
Well, like I wanted to say earlier, I think Bret Hart is just an excellent ring technician. When you were talking about some of the things he does to sell moves for the opponent, also love the sharpshooter. He would hold it just a little bit too long. When I was a kid, I used to think, man, he's hurting this guy, even though I kind of knew it was fake, man. The way he would just kind of hold it and sweat.
Right.
Great execution. And he was very passionate about the sport. I think that was like a golden era. And so it's fun to kind of look back. And with this quarantine time, I'm starting to go back and just appreciate some of those episodes and just looking back at the dynamics. I don't think we'll ever get eras, like 96, 97, 98. I don't think we'll get that ever again. So I'm sure he's happy that he was a part of it and that he has a story to tell and that he's well enough and alive and healthy enough to be part of the WWE fold now, to kind of look back on it and reflect and even do it right next to Shawn Michaels, who always pretends like he has amnesia. Then, well, if Bret says, I was an asshole, then I must have been, because I don't remember anything. So it's just fun to look back on those things.
It is what it is. Those religious guys, you know what I mean? Like,
nice.
Like, I'm a born again Christian. I don't know. But Chief Funk, any final thoughts?
Oh no, man! I just, I love talking wrestling, man, and like Chicano Prophet said, man, with all this extra time we have with the quarantine stuff, man, I've been going back watching a lot of old wrestling, and Bret Hart, to me, again, I'll say it, and I'll stand on my square, man, with anybody. Like, I think he's the best to ever do it. The moves, man, were just. He's the excellence of execution, man. I think for me, like out of all the moves that he does, to me, the best that I don't know how he executes it so well to make it look so good is when he does the backbreaker on opponents. Like, that thing is just like, it just looks so real, and I know it's not, but somehow, some way he's able to lift him up and to do that drop, and then like, it just, oh man, it's crazy the way he does it. But yeah, I'm glad that he's like you said, Chicano Prophet, I'm glad that he's still, able to talk about it and he's gotten over it. I still think he does have a little animosity towards Shawn Michaels, especially because he's always like, well, I also messed up and, I don't remember anything at that time,
I'll give him this. I'll give him this. He's never trashed Shawn Michaels' in-ring abilities.
No, never. No, he's always said he was a great performer and worker. But yeah, I can't wait to do this again, man. Maybe we'll pick another controversial topic to talk about. Hopefully, I didn't sound too congested, man. My allergies have been
man.
really bad this week, man.
Now you sound great, G Funk. Look at G Funk with his brand new headset and everything. Look at this. Anyway, but what's up to A-Rod, man? We'll be on later tonight in about an hour or so for some boxing talk, guys. But at least once every 2 weeks or something. I do want to do like a wrestling kind of thing. But let me say this: we have to talk about why WWE sucks today. Okay, it has a lot of problems because it's not following the formula. It's not. It's horrible. Okay, and I want to talk about the well, it's gonna be the main one, but I also want to do like who you guys think like is like the best wrestler of all time, like we could do like a top 5 list or something like that. You know what I mean? So we could do something like that. With that said, guys, I want to thank you once again for joining, and we're out. Peace.